5P with Lamondre is being brought to you by Rue Global Impact. Rue Global Impact is a disability inclusion firm that helps to amplify your disability inclusion efforts and helps to establish you as a leader of inclusion in your industry. If you want to get in contact with us, simply do so by going to our website, rueglobal.com. That's RUH Global.com. Today on 5P with Lamondre, we're going to be focusing on Sustainable Development Goal number 11 to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Let's go.
Welcome to 5P with Lamondre, the podcast that's all about the 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. If you're looking to be encouraged, inspired, and challenged, then this is the podcast for you. Here's your host, Lamondre.
Oh, I am so excited about today's interview. My guest today has an incredible history, and it's amazing because he's one of these guys that if he wasn't such a compassionate guy, I could hear him having this conversation. I have a very particular set of skills. But thank God my guest is the guy that he is. He has committed 30 years of his life to actually changing the world. I mean, literally changing the face of the world. He was responsible for directing a $1.2 billion effort. It was a resort and theme park development in Costa Rica that emphasized accessibility. He was responsible for developing a 2,200-acre, $800 million development in Costa Rica also. He was a Walt Disney Imagineer, and now he serves as the COO of Rue Global Impact. Please welcome Richard Streitz. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lamondre. It's always a pleasure to be here and to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, I tell you what, man, what I said in the intro was so true. When I think about just the depths and what you have been able to do over the past 30 years, you are scary smart, man.
Well,
you are really scary.
Very kind. That's very kind of you. I just try to do my best at anything and any task that I put my mind to.
Well, I tell you what, you do a fantastic job at it. And the thing that I love about it is the sheer creativity that you employ in doing what it is that you do. And as I said, today's show is really dedicated to Sustainable Development Goal number 11. And this is when we're talking about cities and human dwellings. And throughout your career, even though you've worked with Disney and you've done these developments, one of the areas that I really wanted to speak to you about was the concept of smart cities, where everything is connective and there's data that's being shared. So let's start there, man. Tell me, what is a smart city?
Well, absolutely. That's a great place to start. I think there's a lot of, we hear the term a lot, smart cities, this, that, and the other, and it's in the news frequently, and you hear technology groups talk about it. But oftentimes it can be lost sort of in the discussion about what it actually is, and most people may not necessarily have a clear definition of it. So, right. I mean, the easiest way is to sort of try to break it down. Really, a smart city is comprised of four major components. When an organization, be it a city, a large manufacturing plant, a theme park resort area, a large a development project, all of those can be considered cities, and in the complexity and layering. And it really breaks down to four major categories. One is a sustainability part, one is an efficiency part, one is a people part, and one is a security component. Those are four very large blocks under which each one are subcategories that then break down into various components that make up a smart city. So, for example, in the sustainability part, we would have all your energy management and your water management, your climate change and flooding components, all the infrastructural elements that would go into making a livable environment that's sustainable.
Okay.
Under efficiency, under that we have smart lighting, predictive maintenance, and traffic monitoring, and elements of that nature that are more in the continuous data monitoring elements that helps, like maintenance groups and so forth, know that there is an issue. So, for example, some cities have their sewers and water lines that have sensors on them, so that reports can be made if there is a fracture or a high amount of moisture in any particular area. Alarm gets sent out, and a crew can go out before it starts rupturing and puncturing through the street and so forth, before it becomes a serious problem.
Right.
Those issues can be identified. So those sort of that creates a level of efficiency in how a city can operate and be monitored. Same thing with like traffic. We're all very familiar with traffic and how we use Google or whatever, or Waze or whatever navigation platform one uses. All of those have traffic monitoring components in them that allow us to know, oh, there's heavy traffic on this street. I can divert and reroute to this area and so forth.
Right.
That all goes to the whole smart, the smart city monitoring component that allows us to make our lives more efficient.
Right.
People component. The people component is broken down into smart homes, elderly monitoring, and these sorts of things. That now we go down to the more direct human, as opposed to systems and larger macro. Now we're more into the micro, where we're dealing with the homes and the individual personal component of like smart speakers and smart appliances that engage and that we interact with on a daily basis.
Right. I use them all the time.
Right. Certainly in your situation, they're critical. What's important about how that is layered into the larger ecosystem of a smart city is that these micro components feed back up to the macro components. So, for example, using air conditionings. Air conditionings during summer is a huge issue, usually for power and power distribution and power grids. By the act of knowing that a particular neighborhood or particular region that may be experiencing a high heat wave, that they're able to know that all these air conditioning units are coming on because of the smart monitoring nature of that. And as a result, they can divert power to that particular portion to either increase the power so that the load does not damage the grid,
right.
Or in some instances in Los Angeles, this is very common because of the population density. During extreme hot weather there, they'll actually brown out. They'll actually reduce the power in some areas, forcing the air conditioning units to work at a reduced level, so that again it saves the grid from shutting down. It protects it. It acts as a protection mechanism.
So then it goes to sustainability, efficiency, and
right.
those things. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that all feeds up from the macro level. And then the fourth component that I mentioned, security, right? Those are all like the fire and smoke protections and camera monitoring, and with the intersections, and that help police and law enforcement. Facial recognition type software that is becoming more and more important and key, and even behavioral analytics, right? As a result of us walking around with cell phones and smart watches and so forth, those are in essence monitoring devices. I know that's very Big Brother-ish.
It's kind of scary, Richard. But particular set of skills.
Right, but it's a reality, and again, it's those macro components, those micro components that feed up to the macro that allow for an efficient city to be able to know that, okay, there's a high traffic area that's happening here. Maybe we can divert it over there, or there's a large amounts of people that are on a daily basis. We say overcrowding on passageways or walkways or streets and so forth, with people walking, or like in a mall, for example. This is a way of helping to distribute and monitor, maybe putting something here or there that helps break up the large overcrowding on walkways, hallways, and passageways. So all of these things are important in allowing all of us to be able to live more comfortably and more efficiently in our everyday environments, both at the micro home level and at the macro city and ultimately state level.
And it's amazing how when you start thinking in terms of those four components, how they all play and how it all goes from layer to layer to layer, and one thing contributes to the other. It really is the definition of a city. All these different components and parts working together. Now, just let's kind of drill it down to an individual level. What does that mean for an individual living in a smart city? Give me an example of what that means, how that impacts an individual's life. How would that impact my life as Lamondre Pugh?
Well, I think the telemetry of the multiple layers that feed back to the city also, that goes both ways. So with the data that feeds back into these macro systems, the telemetry back to the individual helps you be able to navigate. So, for example, on a daily basis, you get up in the morning. What if the temperatures have dropped down through the day? Right, you have your automatic thermostats that are the smart thermostats. Temperature drops down. Maybe it's a frost warning that's come up. One of these Arctic blasts that have come down overnight that makes it a freak snow or cold spell. Well, your thermostat can adjust to that, even though it may be outside your range. Maybe this happens during the summer, and you really have your AC unit set to air conditioning and not so much heating. Maybe it'll automatically switch that so that you don't get cold and your environment stays comfortable without you having to necessarily to do anything. So that's one way, and being able to do that in an intelligent way that the grid isn't overburdened and so forth, because all of these components are talking to each other. So, all right. So starting with that, climate. Then you wake up. You get your coffee, you get your breakfast, and what have you. All of these devices that you're leveraging and utilizing in the morning help feed back up into the macro systems that then provide information and data back to you to allow you to progress. So, for example, news. Maybe there's news items that will be that are important in your area or region or in your neighborhood that may affect what activities you're going to be doing that day. Right, that information being transmitted to you through your personal device, whether it's a smartphone or a smartwatch, that information is certainly critical and important for you to know how to progress through the day. Getting in the car and then driving, right, traffic patterns and so forth, that have real-time telemetry feeding back to the individual allows you to monitor and dictate how you're efficiently going to be getting from point A to point B or to go about your day. So those are that's a very basic way how it affects all of us through our daily routine. On how that gives us the benefit of being able to move through our day in an efficient manner.
Right. And that's really interesting, because the thing that I think about is that this is all about collecting data and monitoring and using sensors to see where traffic is and if water's here and all those kinds of things. And the question that comes up is a question that I know many people are thinking is, how do we protect ourselves in terms of our privacy when it comes down to living in smart cities? Because here's the thing, it's inevitable. It's here. And there are some incredible strides that are being made because of this. But then there's also that whole thing of, how do I protect my privacy? And I think some people have some legitimate fears around it, man. So let's talk about that.
Sure. Privacy is an extremely important component for everyone. It is. One of the statistics I hear is that, there's going to be over 20 billion devices by the year 2020 that are connecting either mobile devices or network connected devices.
Well, 20 billion with the B connected devices.
Right. By the year 2020. So in regard to...
That's next year.
Yeah, that's next year to be exact. So in regard to privacy, to a degree, that ship has sailed. Now, having said that, I think the level of information that is collected from us, certainly as we move about holding our phones, that data, as we all know, and we all sort of buy into that data is collected, and it has to be. There's no other way to do it because that's what allows us to use the device to begin with. So what do I mean? Cell site towers, right, are usually spread out in some sort of grid network across a city. As you move, either walking or driving or through the environment, your phone is saying where am I? Where am I? And it's saying that many times a second. And what it's doing, it's reaching out to cell sites, and the cell tower is going, where are you? I see you. There you are. I see you. There you are. I see you. There you are. And the two are talking back and forth. And what happens is, as you go in and out of range of these multiple cell sites, you're being handed off from one repeater to another repeater. And as a result of that action alone, your position data is being monitored. It has to be, otherwise your phone won't work any other way. There is no grand a broadcast of signal that covers entire regions. Everything is all modular and cell site related, so which covers a very specific distance. And so as we progress and transverse through an area, that data has to be collected so that it knows that when to hand off. So say you're on a call and you're switching from one repeater to another, it has to know how to hand that signal off to the next repeater without your call dropping. That means it's tracking you for really a lack of a better. I mean, the reality is that's how that works. Right. So I mean, I'm being very overly broad about it. There's a tremendous amount else involved with that, but at a very oversimplistic description, that's basically what's happening. So that level of data is being collected. Now, does it know that it's me, that it's Richard Streitz that's going from point A to point B? It could. It doesn't generally collect that information unless you specifically give your carrier permission to collect that information, and that's something that you could do. It's pulling demographic data, of course, from knowing who you are, and it may not necessarily have my name associated with it, but it have my age group, my demographic, my income, and all of these other things.
It's collecting that data, right?
It's collecting that data, and which it then sells. Information, as we know, is really the single hottest commodity that businesses buy and sell, and so the collection of data is extremely important from that standpoint. And this shouldn't be anything new for anyone. I mean, the reality is we've allowed that to happen since we started using checks and Visa cards and MasterCards, right? Data has been being collected on us from every swipe, every time we use or write a check or that data is being collected. From the 70s.
And it has been since the 70s. But I think the interesting part about it is people did not view it as that way until the internet, until you could connect with people and see people. So even though it's been done since the 70s, the new fear of it is because it's so readily available and it's being spoken about as being the commodity that it is. So how do people deal with the fears of that now? Because, perception is that individual's reality. So how do people deal with the fear of that and embrace the concept of living in a smart world?
Well, it is difficult and it is challenging, certainly. I mean, I think that you either buy into the system and the environment that exists, and to be able to benefit from all the advantages that these environments offer, or you can not opt into all of these services, and then you're not able to necessarily take advantage of all of these. Now, one discussion we can certainly have is it fair that you have to opt in order to take advantage, and should the individuals who don't want to opt in, should they be penalized, if you will, for not being able to participate in taking advantage of these services? I'm not sure that's a very, very tough discussion to try to get into.
That's a dilemma. That's a dilemma, yeah.
And there's multiple ways that those issues can be addressed and approached. But I think as we are, as you alluded to, we're certainly, with every year that goes by, we're exponentially increasing our technology and the way we communicate and interact with not only ourselves between individuals, but also with the environment and ourselves. All of these questions are sort of coming to head, I think, in a way that's faster than we as a society are able to handle the potential consequences for. And so as we all eager to jump into this incredible and amazing fast information age, we are not necessarily taking the proper metered steps to control and understanding the ramifications of this vast technology wave that we are, or tsunami, I should say, that we're in the middle of.
Right. No, it is definitely a tsunami, and I believe that, while we are advancing in this brave new world, the reality is that we then have to bring the human aspect to all of this technology, and that means that we have to make certain that we are practicing proper ethics, that we are being ethical and moral, and that there is entities, that the people are actually governing this kind of activity. Because I am all for free enterprise. I'm all for innovation moving forward, and I don't want to squash it. I want it to move forward. But I do believe that we have to be careful. I believe we have to be careful in making certain that the human touch is still there, that we're not violating people's rights, and people understand that this is your data, this is your information, and you have a right to know where it's going, you have a right to see where it's going, and you have a say in that as a society. And I think that if we move forward with ethical and moral practices, that we certainly can have this brave new world. Because here's the thing, as you said before, that ship has sailed. It's here. It's just like, I believe, the whole concept of the self-driving car. Like it or not, it's coming. Just like when there was a picture, and I can't remember what presentation it was in, but there was a picture, and it was a town that was filled with horses and carriages, and in the picture there was 2 cars, and then like the very next year it was filled with cars, but 2 horses. Same area, same spot. And it was talking about how quickly technology turns over and how quickly things change. And the truth is, we know the people during that time, I don't want one of those machines that you got to put gas in, or I don't want one of those machines that has no horse. It has no brain. What if this goes wrong? But guess what? That's how technology goes, and that's how advancement moves forward, man. So how did you get involved in working with smart cities? How did that come about for you?
Well, very interestingly, I think initially when I was working with Disney, that certainly had a lot to do with interest in working with these large environments that are multi-layered and have large integration of multiple systems. Of course, at the time that I was working with the large theme park and resort environments, which are basically small cities. I mean, sure, they're fun and entertaining and creative, and we have a lot of fun doing that. But kind of behind that, all that fun are actual real cities that are making all that magic happen. There's sewer and water treatment plants and power grids that are all freestanding and self-sufficient. Each one of our resorts is basically a small, completely intact environment that's self-sustaining. And that's by design for safety and security reasons and so forth. And so all of these multiple layers of system is something that we weren't calling them smart cities at the time. We were just calling them integrated systems. Very simple terminology. But in reality, they were sophisticated telematic systems that all had to talk to each other. A ride attraction. If there was an issue with a particular ride, that information had to get transmitted to an ops lead and to a maintenance individual, so that they would know immediately something was wrong, and then they would go out there and deal with it appropriately before anything more dangerous happened or put any of our guests at risk.
Right.
So that's a very basic level. But even things like waste management and control in regard to trash cans being too full or getting too full, that would warn someone, and someone would go out there and empty it out before it started creating a problem. Traffic flow, I mentioned traffic flow earlier. That was an issue that we made sure is that, overcrowding and dispersion of during parade routes and fireworks night shows at night and so forth, where we're having, anywhere from, depending on which park, you could have anywhere from 10 to, 12, 14,000 people conversing to a small area all at once to watch a parade or a fireworks show, and then having to disperse without, creating a stampede or anyone getting injured.
Right.
And this has to happen a couple times every single day. And so Disney, over the many years of doing this on a daily basis, became very, very efficient in being able to do that. So to answer your question, I'm going off on a tangent, but to answer your question more directly, it was the engagement and involvement with all of these multiple layers of systems which got me very interested into understanding the reality about how that makes an environment engaging and inclusive. And the key word there is inclusive and accessible. Because without all of those systems, you won't necessarily have that layering that makes that inclusive. Obviously, when we were at Disney, one of the most important things was to provide an absolutely engaging and entertaining environment for all people,
right,
all ages, all abilities. And we spent a tremendous amount of time consciously going over that to make sure that that was the case. But when we went to open a new attraction or a new park or a new resort. So the culmination of all that, right? Those are smart cities. When I left Disney and moved on, I worked on my own projects in developing, like the one in Costa Rica and Texas and Puerto Rico. These were environments that I took my knowledge and my base knowledge and experience that I had at Disney and incorporated that into these other larger and massive environments that were, again, really basically smart cities. And I was incorporating all the latest technology that was available at the time to be able to do that and to work in these environments to create a truly immersive and inclusive and accessible environment. So that's how I really got involved with that. I mean, I've always been involved all my life with technology and design, efficiency in design. Through leveraging technology in the best way possible that's sustainable. I think that's another really key component of this. It's very easy to put a lot of technology together, but if it's not sustainable, it's only good for a few years, and then the components aren't available or the company doesn't exist anymore that made X, Y, and Z product, and now you have a gap into how your systems are interacting or engaging with each other. So it's really important when one is creating these cities that they're modular enough that they don't collapse under a one supplier or vendor no longer being available or product line not necessarily being available anymore. So that's the sustainability part, where it's got to be made. One's got to be really engaged in understanding that that's key component to making a productive and active smart city. Yeah. So that was a very long-winded explanation, but anyway, that's how
it was a good explanation.
Got into it.
Now, it was a good explanation, because what that says to me is that, you took the work that you did at Disney, and I have to say that you traveled all over the world with Disney. You're the guy who personally programmed the Indiana Jones exhibit. That's amazing, man. I'm telling you, a particular set of skills that is translated into just an amazing career of really enriching people's lives. Because here's the thing, as we talk about the technology, as we talk about the complexity of the systems, this is really about helping to create places where people live, work, raise their families, live their lives, where people are included, where there's safety, where there is harmony, it's a situation where it can continue. It's an environment that can be that continues, that's perpetual. And that's really what you're talking about. And that's why in the intro I said you use your skills, your talent, and your experience to literally change the world, because there are so many people who are living in slums. There are so many people who are living in poverty, but there are also people like myself who, I'm not living in a slum, I'm not living in poverty, but because I am a person with a disability, I need my city to be responsive to my needs. I need my work environment to be responsive to my needs. I love the fact that I can come into my home, I can say an utterance, and my lights come on. or I can adjust the thermostat. And believe it or not, it's not just because I'm a person with a disability. That makes it easier for everybody. Think about the person coming in their house with an armful of groceries. And now they don't have to fumble for the light. They can simply say, whatever it is, whatever that phrase is, whatever that utterance is, turn on the lights or lock the doors. A parent can now rest comfortably because now they can look in on their child on their phone instantly. And that's all because of the kinds of technologies that you help to bring to reality, Richard. So, yeah, I know we're nerding out talking about technology, but I mean, it really does have an incredible application to people's lives.
Well, thank you. You know, I mean, it's all about creating enriching, engaging environments, and that's really whether they're entertainment or theme park type facilities, or they're cities that and environments that work environments, home environments, civic environments. If the environment isn't engaging, it prevents an individual from actually interacting and engaging in their life. And so by creating all of these multiple layers of subsystems, like you said, from the house, from the lights, being able to lock the door, I think we all win. It's not just about creating something that is for persons with disabilities or a person that has this, that, or another ability. That's really immaterial. It's about creating convenience for everyone. Because that's the way an environment can really, really provide enrichment in one's life. And that is where I think we are heading. It's so important to allow all individuals to be able to independently move and traverse through their daily the daily tasks in a way that allows that individual to do that and conveniently and sustainably. So that's the key component to a smart city or a smart environment, is being able to do all of that to allow accessibility and convenience.
Yeah, and I think that is a key component, but it's so complex to make that happen. But I love the concept, and I love the way that Disney does it, because they make it look easy. You don't even think about it. You don't think about it. And I know that it wasn't. But I also think about the fact that you're a classically trained musician. And what that tells me is that you know how to take the complex. You know how to take the complicated. You know how to take dissidence and all those things and make it seem so harmonious and give this tension and release, and what the audience then gets is just simply an experience that we want to keep having over and over and over again. And I think that is a part of what society should be, an experience that we want to keep having over and over again. So,
yeah, you know what? It's interesting you bring up the music, because I certainly leverage that experience and those traditions in music to a lot of the work that I do, because they are very much related. The understanding the thematics with the supporting background and chordal and harmonious structures, like you said, with the dissonance, and then moving into harmonious themes and so forth. These are all important components that help make the whole, the entire piece, work in a way that is, in theory, pleasing or enjoyable by everyone that listens to it. And I feel the same way about when I approach an environment, in trying to make it the best it can. All these components should work flawlessly, or should work almost invisibly with each other in a way that is seamless to the end user. They just should be. They shouldn't be all about this technology, that technology, or the other. VR and AR is another really great example about how technology can be used in a way that leverages a person's ability to be able to engage in an environment without necessarily making the alternative reality or virtual reality component or technology all about that technology. Right. I think that's something that many organizations are still trying to deal with, in kind of crossing over with preventing the device from being the main component versus it just being a seamless tool to allow any individual to be able to engage with their environment in a rich and engaging way. So that I think is what's sort of important about understanding that never letting our technology become all about the technology. The technology is just a tool that allows us to be able to do the things we need to do in a seamless and efficient way.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, man, I really appreciate the work that you've done in order to make that happen. As you know, with 5P, with Lamondre, this show is about people using their passions to make the world a better place. What are some of the main takeaways that you'd like to share with people who are really looking at how they can contribute, how they can make the world a better place? Obviously, you've used your unique set of skills to help do that, and you literally are elevating the way that people live, even in the work you're doing now with Rue Global Impact. I see that as even being more so now than all the huge things that you've done in the past. So what are some of the takeaways that you can share with someone listening to this right now of how they can tap into that well and make the world a better place?
Well, I firmly believe that all of us have with us through our life's journey a series of experiences, whether they're good or bad. My life hasn't been exactly all roses and unicorns. There's been challenges too that, like everyone, that we've had to go through. And I think there was the culmination of that, the weaving of these good and not so great experiences is what allows us to create a vocabulary in ourselves that to engage and move into approaching situations and challenges and creating new things. I think building on everything that we do, that's one thing that I've always strived to do with all aspects of and the various careers I've had in my life, is I've taken one to allow it to build on top of the other. And as a result of that, it puts a different perspective on things when I look at various when I look at a problem or a situation in front of me, is I pull from all of that experience from all of these differences. And I think everyone has the chance and the ability to be able to do that. I certainly over my life has developed a unique set of skills that no one can really duplicate because no one else has lived the life that I have. But that's not a unique experience to me. I think all of us have that. We're all unique from each other. And as a result, we all bring that uniqueness to whenever we try to approach a situation or a problem. And I think what's important, that the takeaway for me, is to recognize all of the levels that we are individually unique, all of those unique experiences. How can I take what I've done in the past and really leverage it into making something better or better than myself for others in the future? Thinking outside the box, using my experiences. This is sort of the approach that I always try to use whenever I go after trying to solve something or trying to create something. Always try to make something that is bigger and better than oneself for others. It's that sort of paying it forward almost with one's creativity and one's energy with doing good. And I believe that's how we should always approach technology. Technology should always be for good and for all, because that's the only way us as I think as a global society and a global neighborhood really can advance and move forward. I think it's unfortunate when we start siloing ourselves and start boxing ourselves in and being islands, whether we're talking at a country level or at a state level or at a personal level. I think it's important that we are open to hearing and learning from each other. Because again, we all have this very different, unique background and experience through our individual life's journeys. So anyway, that, again, I'm sorry, very long-winded answer, but that's sort of my takeaway from the experiences I've had in my life. I don't know if that's exactly what you were after, but anyway, that's how I approach it.
No, that was absolutely beautiful. Technology for good, technology for all. Richard, how can people get in contact with you?
I am fairly easy to get in contact with. Certainly on a Google search, my information will come up. Typing my name, Richard Streitz. But also on Twitter, I'm at Streitz-Ability. At Streitz-Ability. That's you can find me on Twitter there, and on Facebook, just Richard Streitz.
Spell Streitz.
My last name is spelled Streitz. Most people pronounce it Streitz, but it's really Streitz. That's just one of those interesting German foibles of the language.
Richard, thank you so much for doing what you do, my man. I really appreciate it, and I thank you for sharing your unique gift and your particular set of skills with the rest of the world, man. Thank you so much. And that's about all the time we have for 5P with Lamondre. I want to do something new this week, though. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from each and every single one of you. If you have an idea for a show or a question or a comment, I've set up a voicemail line for you. So give us a call at 803-470-2830. That's 803-470-2830. Or you can follow us on Facebook at 5P Podcast. That's Facebook at 5P Podcast, or on Twitter at 5P Podcast. And of course, you can follow me, Lamondre Pugh, on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or about anywhere that you want to connect with me socially. That's all the time we have. I am Lamondre Pugh, reminding you that today is the perfect day to begin being the change that you want to see. Live big, live full, live authentic. God bless.